Hi everyone, Dr. Shook here. Hope you're doing well today. What I want to talk to you about in this video is a really important topic. And I just want to start by giving you a statistic. Okay, I want you to think about this for a second. What we're going to talk about is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. And it's the only one of these top causes of death with no effective treatment. Nothing. No effective treatment whatsoever. Every other major disease has effective treatments. Every other one. And this is a huge problem because this is expected to be a massive problem for every country, the entire world over the next 50 years. Okay? It's already a huge problem right now. What I'm talking about is Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline, neurodegenerative conditions. This is expected to bankrupt the United States and really every country because there are going to be so many people. It's projected at this rate that we're going to have so many people with cognitive decline, with Alzheimer's disease, that we won't be able to afford to take care of them. In 2010, there were 36 million people in the United States, or worldwide, with dementia. Okay, 36 million worldwide with dementia. In 2030, that's supposed to double. In 2050, it's supposed to double again. It's going to be such a huge number of people that we will not have the resources to take care of them. There is hope for this. There's new science that has been shown to slow, halt, and reverse this problem. I'm going to talk to you about it in a second. But we need to understand the landscape and why we're faced with such an exploding epidemic and why we've had so many failures to do anything about it, because it's not for a lack of trying. So there's no drug that currently exists to make Alzheimer's better. Nothing. No drug. There have been 244 drugs researched. Billions upon billions of dollars have been spent investigating Alzheimer's. 2 drugs have been approved. 2 drugs, but they do nothing to treat the driving factors. They're just trying to treat the symptoms to give you a little bit better quality of life, but the brain continues to degenerate. You know, I use the analogy of fanning smoke. If the Alzheimer's process is the fire burning, and the smoke are the symptoms that the person's experiencing with their memory, with all of the symptoms associated with Alzheimer's and cognitive decline, then these medications just fan the smoke. They do nothing to put the fire out. The fire continues to rage, and these drugs, they stop having an effect because they work on the brain chemistry, but they do nothing to address the underlying pathophysiology, the reason that the brain is degenerating, which is what we all want, And it's not because the companies and the researchers are just trying to find a drug to make money. It's actually because Alzheimer's disease has multiple factors that drive it. So you can't treat it with a singular solution. You have to match the complexity of the problem. The complexity of the solution has to match the complexity of the problem. So it's a very complex problem. It's going to have a complex solution that is unique to each individual because every person has a different cause. Every person has a different cause. We'll talk about that in a second. So there's not even a drug for the conditions that come prior to Alzheimer's. So it's SCI, which is subjective cognitive impairment. It means you know that you're losing your sharpness, your memory, your processing abilities, you're forgetting things, and you can tell, you know. But if we were to do neuropsychological evaluations, it wouldn't show up, right? It's not sensitive enough to detect these problems. So SCI is something that you know. You know you're forgetting names, faces, you don't remember things as well, you forget where you put things, you walk out of the grocery store, you don't know where you parked, you can't remember. Your short-term memory is significantly impacted. Now, after subjective cognitive impairment, when that worsens and becomes more severe, it becomes mild cognitive impairment. Now, this is something that we can detect using an instrument to evaluate your memory and different aspects of your memory, or of your brain health, I should say. And neuropsychological testing can do it. And this is something that it can be determined. But there's not even a drug for these things. There's like nothing. There's nothing. And these would be like pre-Alzheimer's states. So the problem here is again that that Alzheimer's has multiple factors that contribute to the manifestation of the disease and the symptoms. So we have to look at all the factors that we currently understand for every person and figure out what their unique drivers of the disease process is, or we're not going to be able to help them. Okay, so, and that's what we see with all of this research and this money and everything that's been poured into it and spent. Massive failure. 244 drugs researched, 2 approved. They don't even treat driving factors. They just treat the symptoms. It's a terminal disease. And the problem is, so that just means that it's expected to end the person's life, right? And that there's no effective treatment for it. But there has been research that shows that Alzheimer's cognitive decline can be slowed, halted, or even reversed. Even reversed. Published in peer-reviewed index literature, there's a mounting and more research that's ongoing. And I'm going to explain that to you in a second. So the problem too is that Alzheimer's and these processes, these memory and brain-based processes, they rob the person of their life years before they die. They rob the family and friends of meaningful life and years. It can be decades before death. So it is a horrible, horrible disease because it takes the person from you before they ever die. It takes you from your family before you ever lose your life. And this is something that we know we can do something about. We can do something about it. The research has shown us that it can be done. I've gone through training to implement the information that has been learned from the research to apply it in clinical practice. That's why I'm sharing this with you. So why it's so difficult to help is because to date, 36 driving factors have been identified that promote the changes of the brain that are observed with Alzheimer's. Okay? So 36 unique driving factors. And it's believed that we'll probably have somewhere between 50 to 100 when it's all said and done. So, but even with this data that we have, 36, we know we don't know everything that's driving it, but we've got a lot. Alzheimer's is being slowed, halted, and reversed. Okay, very important to understand. 6 subtypes of Alzheimer's have been identified. I'm going to go through them quickly. Type 1 is inflammatory. Anything that drives an inflammatory process promotes neural degeneration and the pathophysiology of Alzheimer's. Glycotoxic is the next type, which is blood sugar related. Blood sugar dysregulation, high blood sugar, diabetes contributes to damage of the neurons. That's all you need to know. The next type is atrophic. Deficiencies of vitamins, minerals, and hormones. It robs the brain of the things that it needs to keep the nerve cells, the neurons, healthy. When that occurs, you have problems with the brain. It cannot function. It drives the pathophysiology, the negative changes that we see in the brain associated with Alzheimer's. Beta amyloid formation, neurofibrillary tangles, dendrite retraction, neuron death. Okay, all of these things are very important. Just means the brain, you're impacting the brain in a very negative way. The next subtype is related to toxicity. Okay, now biotoxins in particular. Biotoxins, the main thing I'm talking about here is mold exposure. 25% of the buildings in the United States have been water damaged. Those buildings have mold, many of them have mold growing in them. 1 in 4 people have a genetic susceptibility to mold. When they get exposed to it, it drives a chronic inflammatory response in their body. That chronic inflammation promotes these problems. There's actually a research paper published on inhalation, preventable inhalation caused Alzheimer's disease. Research paper, just look it up. Go to pubmed.gov, you'll find it. They're also related to that third type, mold exposure, chronic inflammatory response, Lyme disease. Lyme disease is a chronic bacterial infection. It can cross the blood-brain barrier, get into the brain, drive chronic inflammatory responses or an inflammatory response within the brain. We know that happens because on people that had Alzheimer's, that passed away, that donated their brains, when some of these brains were biopsied, they found the Lyme bacteria in the brain. Okay, in the brain. So infections play a huge role. Pathogens, bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi play huge roles. Toxins, Also within this biotoxin, with this type 3 toxics, we talked about mold, we talked about Lyme disease. We also want to talk about toxic exposures, mercury, lead, the metals, but also, people don't realize this. There are currently 85,000 industrial and agricultural chemicals today. These are everywhere. They're in all of our clothes, everything that's manufactured, all this man-made stuff around us. They're used on our food. They're in our water. They're in our air. They're everywhere. They're in the cosmetics you put on your body. Think about the things that you wash with that are absorbed right through the skin, the deodorant you put on, the toothpaste you use, the makeup you put on your face. All those things contain chemicals. That's what they're made of. Right? So there are ways that we can investigate. We consider all these things because we know that they're there. So there are ways that we can investigate those things. We can look for safer products. We can filter the air. We can check the home. We can check the body for a lot of these factors. We can determine what your unique risk factors are, what the factors promoting the disease process are, and then we can put together specific plans that are unique to that person, unique to you. That's how it has to be done. That's why there's such failure, because there's lack of that matching of the complexity of the problem with a complex solution. You have to match. The problems have to be equally matched. You can't use an extremely simple solution for complex problems. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I wish it did. So there are these subtypes. The next subtype after toxic is cerebrovascular, which means you can't get blood, oxygen, nutrients to the brain. It also within that subtype is hypoxia, so decreased oxygen delivery to the brain. And with that you have loss of neurological function. If you don't know this, sleep apnea and upper airway resistance, that has to be addressed. If you have those problems, you're having brain problems, you have Alzheimer's in your family, it's the first thing to do. Go get a sleep study, get whatever you need, a CPAP, whatever you need. You've got to sleep well. Okay, it's critical for neurological function. The next subtype and the last subtype is traumatic. So anything that's trauma to the brain is a major problem for neurodegenerative conditions. These are the 36 factors. Within those subtypes, those 6 subtypes, they all have unique 36 driving factors. They have, some of these are blended within those different subtypes. Now the thing is that no one has one pure subtype. That we have a blending of these things, right? So it's that people have infections, they have mold in their home, they've had head injuries, they have sleep apnea, they have nutrient deficiencies. I mean, that's why you have to cast a wide net, look at all of it. Take that data, formulate a specific plan. With that, you work that specific plan and you get the person as healthy as possible. Then you optimize their neurological function. You have them doing brain training, you have them using nutritional supplementation that assists in new neuron formation. Okay? Very important. So the new approach today, the new approach follows this methodology. Understand this problem first. There are multiple factors, 36 driving factors, 6 subtypes. To understand what is driving that person's problem, you first have to do something. You have to ask the question, what are their unique driving factors? Step 1 is detect. We're going to use a D. D for detect that person's unique driving factors. And then you can use that to move into step 2, to remove or replenish what is missing. If there's something driving the process, remove it. If there's something missing that's keeping the body from working optimally, replace it. Simple. Simple. Common sense. It's so clear when you see it this way. When you understand the problem, it makes sense that no wonder there's such failure and that there's only 2 drugs approved and they're only treating symptoms, because it's a complex problem that requires a complex solution that's unique to the individual. You can't treat everybody the same. Now, once you've removed and replenished, you move into step 3, which is repair and optimize. So we're going to put an R there. DRR, detect, remove and replenish, repair and optimize. Repairing and optimization, we want to use dietary approaches, we want to use brain training approaches, we want to use a nutritional supplementation, we want to use what we call biohacking types of of tricks with, you can use a lot of different things, from devices you might use, red light therapy, pulse electromagnetic field, sauna therapy. A lot of different possibilities could be used. Doesn't mean they're going to be, but they're possibilities to optimize neurological function, okay? Improve life even more. Slow, halt, and reverse. This is the exact strategy to slow, and that's been used to slow, halt, and reverse cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. This is what we have to do. I hope this makes sense. This is very, very important. And what I want to share with you is that this information is, we've got to share this with the people, with everyone, because people need to understand that there are things that can be done, that there's new science, there's new literature. Dale Bredesen's one of the researchers that's brought this to light. He's the first person to publish literature on reversing, slowing, halting, and reversing Alzheimer's. I've gone through training. I'm a Bredesen qualified practitioner. I use this with people in clinical practice. I created something called the Saving the Brain program. I work with people around the world implementing these strategies. We can help people to get testing, to understand these driving factors the best possible way, and then implement a plan to remove, replenish, repair, and optimize. Okay, and we work with them based on the test results. Around the world, we work with people across the United States. We help them to, we look at their history in great detail, their health history, so that we can get an idea of what the likely drivers are. We confirm and investigate that with testing and detailed testing. Then we implement dietary strategies, nutritional supplementation strategies, lifestyle strategies. We help you figure out the answer to these problems. We do our very best to help you to get your health back, your brain back. Slow, halt, and reverse this process. So if you're interested in that, if that's something that you would like to consider for yourself, maybe just for prevention, maybe you have mild subjective cognitive impairment or mild cognitive impairment, or maybe one of your loved ones does, or maybe one of your friends does, then you can just go to new.alzconsult.com. That's new.alzconsult.com, and you can learn about my Saving the Brain program. I have a tremendous amount of information there for you so you can understand what we do. We follow this process and how, all the details of working with me. You can look at everything from cost to anything you want to know is there. And then if you're interested in working with me, just reach out to us. You can also request a consultation from there, and we can start working with you to try to improve your health, slow, halt, reverse this, prevent Alzheimer's, and work with you to have the best life possible. But if you have any questions, you need anything, don't hesitate to just send us a message, post your comments here, share this with other people so that we can get the word out about these problems, and that there is hope, that there are things that we can do about it, that this doesn't have to be your destiny. So if you guys have any questions, you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. I really appreciate you spending this time with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks.